So now I'm going to introduce you to our Black Gamers Matter live panel. First and foremost, I want to introduce you to my Sony superhero and rock star. It's all this black girl magic in this industry. And when I found out it was less than 0.5% black, 2% black and less than 0.5% women of color, I was like, wow, this is going to be interesting, but I'm not going to let that stop me. So I reached out on LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, get on there, because there's a lot of things that happen on LinkedIn. I reached out to all the CEOs of my favorite games, my favorite console, which is PlayStation. I played all the PlayStation games. I don't have a PS5 yet, but I've been playing at my nephew's house because my sister paid that crazy money and got him a PS5. But what I'm excited about, and she'll tell you that it's coming to Miles College. Davina Mackey is the director of quality assurance at Sony PlayStation. I'm amazed at the fact that she's been at this company 18 years, because you'll see in a second she doesn't look like it. She's also a mother of 3 and a grandmother, and she's been a part of, and she just left the president of Black at PlayStation. While she was there, I met her with an Asian woman who was told by our CEO to contact me to see how they could work with us at BCGA. And they provided us equipment, over $500,000 in equipment, to provide free of charge to our 16 member institutions. Each of our campuses got almost $50,000 in electronics and equipment from Sony PlayStation because of this lady and an Asian woman named Grace Chin. So after this, I reached out to the CEO not even a week later, 48 hours, I got a call from Grace. And another 24 hours later, she's like, I've got the woman for you, because this is a temporary role for me. This is 2 weeks after George Floyd was killed. This is a temporary role for me. I'm just chairing this committee, but she will be there for you. And 3 years later, she is still a champion and an advocate for everything we're doing with Sony PlayStation. This is her first time in Alabama. So she is here for the first time. Got a chance to see Alabama A&M yesterday and hang out for a second last night in Birmingham. And she got a chance to see a taste of Miles College. So please give her a warm Miles College welcome, Davina Mackey.
How's everybody? I am so happy to be here. This is my first time in Alabama. It is my first time or second time at a HBCU. And I have to say, it is so pleasant when the teachers came up, or I should say professors, because you guys look like my kids. Yeah, amazed, and just the warmth that I feel coming in and just being around our people. It's just amazing. This is not my opportunity every single day, let me tell you. When I go to work, my team is probably the most diverse team in all of QA as a global group, and we're about 500 people global. And my team is the most diverse team, not just in terms of race and ethnicity, but nationality as well. So I really do my due diligence in making sure that I'm getting the right people in the door, including my family. I'm leaving a legacy at Sony. My daughter has just gotten a job in our corporate office. So what I want to say is that, so my daughter, and this is one of the challenges that we have in the game industry, is that you can't go from college traditionally into the gaming industry because they want 3 to 5 years experience. So my daughter went and worked for a patent law firm. She worked there for 3 years, and she now is going to be a paralegal assistant in our patents department in our legal field. But we're trying to change that. I work in QA. I'm director of quality assurance, one of 4 directors, only black female. Let me see. In PlayStation Studios, I'm the only black female at the director level. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. And I didn't come in as a director. Like Keisha said, I started out as a project coordinator, actually, coming from the banking industry. I was at Washington Mutual. And just so happened to have the right skill set that the hiring manager was looking for. And I just so happened to be good friends, I wouldn't say good friends, colleagues with the admin that also interviewed me. We went to the same high school. And so my mother and my grandmother prayed for me, and I got that job. Been there for 18 years, almost 19 now. And then I started late too, guys. I didn't even have a college education when I got my foot in the door. Started out as a single mother and probably went to college for a semester. Got married early, had all my kids early, got divorced early too, but that's a different story. But yeah, I had challenges. I didn't make all the right decisions at first, but I worked through. I had great parents and great support. And through that, I was able to make sure that I went back to university. I got my job before I went to university, but went back. Sony paid for my undergrad. 7 years later, went back. Sony paid for my master's program. So I can tell you that even when you don't make right decisions, if you keep your head straight and you persevere through, you definitely can make it. I can tell you that I never in a million dreams thought that I would be a director at a big corporation like PlayStation, because I went from a manager to director. So I skipped all those little steps in between that. But never thought that would happen to me, but you know, I just never doubted myself either. So if I can do it with 3 kids and just determination, you guys are already so far ahead, right? You guys are already putting the right steps together. You guys will have exactly what the industry is looking for. So I'm going to stop talking and we're going to get going. I want to introduce our panelists. I'm going to let them come up. Mr. Danny Martin. And Miss Brittney Sears. Sorry. Did I say that? Sears. Did I say that right? Seals. So I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, my name is Brittney Seals. I'm the Chief Operations Officer at Esposure. I've been in the esports industry since 2015. And essentially I started doing content creation, videography, photography for Danny. And since then I've been able to really grow. I've learned so many tools, so many skills, and really have been able to kind of get in pretty much every area of our company. It's an esports company called Esposure. We focus on exposing individuals to the opportunities in esports, not just on the gaming side, but also the professional careers that support gamers. And so I've really been able to kind of get my hands on everything and excel to the point of being the Chief Operations Officer in the company, and then also the Executive Director of our nonprofit, Esposure for All, which is really focused on getting more hands-on experiences for individuals to where they're actually doing their own organizations, running their own esports events.
Awesome. Yes. Perfect. My name is Danny Martin. I am the co-founder and CEO of Esposure. This is extremely valuable for me personally, just due to the fact that I get a chance to speak to individuals who look like me and have gone through some of the same experiences as myself just as much. I am traveling, speaking all across, and a lot of times I'm speaking to individuals who don't look like me. And so this is like warming to me from this perspective. And this is the same exact reason why we started this organization. For an example, like Brittney stated, we've seen a huge need in the esports industry while I was in college. I'm 34 now, but I started in college. I literally was the individual that was just like Danny, a entrepreneurship major. And I was always trying to figure out what will my light bulb moment be. In entrepreneurship class, they say light bulb moment, light bulb moment. And that's the moment that you say, wow, this can be a business venture. And I didn't get my light bulb moment until I was at University of Texas at San Antonio. And I was at the actual cafe with one of my athletes. I was a track runner. And he said, my console is inoperable. And at that point, I was just like, light bulb, if I can actually fix this console, I likely can fix other individuals' consoles on campus just as much. I did not know how to fix a console at that time. So for me, what I actively did is I told him, I made a deal. I said, if I can fix your console, that'll be great. If I couldn't fix your console, I'll buy you another one, right? And at that point, I researched Google, and I was just like, okay, repair shops in the area, you know? The closest repair shop in the area was like 40 minutes off campus. So what I did was I took his console after practice. It was late at night. I sat there with the individual as he fixed his console, and I learned right then. I said, okay, I can keep doing this. I went back on campus and started knocking on everyone's dorms and like, is your console broke? You know, people were looking at me like, are you crazy? I'm not gonna just give you my console. And I started to build a rapport where individuals like, man, you fixed such and such console. Oh, I got you, you know? And I would take 10, 20 consoles to him every single day after practice, and I would just sit there for hours and learn, taking the console apart, reflowing the motherboard, the processor. A lot of people probably know about red rings of death at the time. I would actually just take everything apart. Typically, red rings of death, it means your processor is actively has been moved off your processor has moved from your actual motherboard because it typically will get too overheated. Like people in dorms will smoke and they won't clean out their actual. It's like a console is like a computer. So when it gets so heated, the processor flows off. And at that point, I would just actually place that processor back on the motherboard and fix it just like that. So that's like $60 in like 30 minutes. So for me, I was just making capital from that perspective. But that's how I started. I started in the actual dorm rooms from my college perspective. And so I feel like you can think that same way from a light bulb moment perspective. But ultimately, fast forward here, you know, we have an 8,000 square foot esports studio and education center, and we focus in on providing opportunities for students in regards to understanding the pathways that are involved inside of the gaming industry. Yes, yeah, for sure. Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so over time, over the 10 years, you know, when you think about a building, like it's probably been like an investment around $1.6 million of actively saying this is what we want to do and this is what we want to add value to our local communities. I grew up in the southern sector of Dallas, like the Oak Cliff area, the DeSoto, Duncanville area. So I wanted to bring an actual esports space into that particular area to impact the youth in that area because I knew exactly the challenges that they face because I grew up from those areas. So I wanted to bring something really, really dope back to our community. So in summation, you know, for me, I am a tech nerd. And from my perspective, I just really wanted to be able to utilize technology, esports, to impact our communities.
Danny, tell them about everything you offer in Esposure in terms of what aspects are in when you walk in the door.
Yeah, so we built it as like, you know, my goal, you know, as an organization is we're trying to build one of the first esports colleges, like Full Sail. Or for us, we focus on the high school realm. So we're really looking at being able to allow high school students to come into our facility. And so we built it as like a campus. So you can see the actual developers that build our technological platform that integrates into schools, as well as the production room, as well as the content rooms, as well as a professional game where you can see it's just like this, where you can have about 200 individuals spectating the actual gaming stage, as well as shoutcasting rooms and things like that. So, you know, our space is built with the perspective in mind of educating, you know, teaching individuals that they can actually have those same skill sets that can allow them to be confident when they approach companies like PlayStation or other companies out there as well.
I think that's awesome because most people in your field are just teaching competitive gaming. They're not teaching the business. And when we own and when we are the ones producing, that is where the money really is. So I tip my hat off to you. But we have a compelling topic today. We're discussing the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to add belonging to that. And, you know, in games today and best practices, we're working towards more diversity. And we're also looking at inclusive digital landscape with direct examples of inclusivity, integrated gaming programs. And so I have insight into the publisher side and the actual game development point of view. My panelists, though, they have the insight into the competitive gaming and the professional gaming side. And, with that being said, I just want to go into the first question that we have for today is, what brought you into the gaming industry space? So, you've already kind of told us that, so I'm going to start with Brittney.
Yeah, so I met Danny back in 2015, and he had moved back to Dallas, and he was looking to start his brand, start his company.
Okay.
And so I was looking for something different at the time. I was working in corporate America, and he was like, hey, well, I need someone to help me kind of get my brand started. So I need a website, I need some pictures. Can you help me? And so I said, of course I can. Never picked up a camera before, didn't know anything about website design or anything, but I learned, so at that time I learned, how to do a camera, I learned Photoshop, and WordPress. And so that kind of started my journey. At the time, we did a vlog for him, we did weekly videos, and so that really kind of started, because at that time we didn't even have a building. By now we've had 3 buildings, but we didn't have a building, so we were just kind of filming videos every week, pushing out the blog, and then as we started to grow, I started to do merchandise. So I took the skills I learned from working in Adobe to start kind of creating my mock-ups of my merchandise for Esposure, and so that was kind of the journey, and since then we've just kind of added on different things that we've wanted to do, and I've been able to grow with the company and learn. And so it's been a really cool experience because with esports, it touches so many different industries and so many different things, and you get so many skills. And, if you're not paying attention before you look at it, you know how to do so much stuff. And so that's really been the experience. And the draw of it is, there's avenues for everybody. Even if you love gaming and you're not the best gamer, you can find a space in it where you can succeed.
Let me ask a follow-up on that. Do you enjoy what you do?
I do.
Yeah.
I really love it. So I'm a person that gets bored really easily. And so I'm, operations, and it's never boring because there's always something new to learn, something new to fix, and something we're always trying to figure out, and we're always pushing ourselves to grow. And so it's an element of where it's like, okay, let me learn this, or let's try this. And every event we do, even if it's like if we just did the same event, the day prior or the week prior, it's like, what can we do to make this better? Right. So we're always challenging ourselves. Yeah. And so that's what makes it really fun for me.
So I asked that question because a lot of people say, how can you be with one company for 18 years? But I started PlayStation at PS2 era is when I first came in, and they were going into the Slim. So every 7 years or so, new technology is launching with a new platform. And my job gets that much interesting because there's always new technology, new games. And I started off in the sound department, so it was the creative side of things. And just watching them do the amazing development of assets, whether it be voiceover or ambient sounds in a level, it was just really an amazing thing that I just never got bored with. And it's just, I don't know, the gaming industry, this is an advertisement right now. The gaming industry is just kick-ass fun. You never get bored. Do you guys agree? You just never get bored.
It's hard. It's hard to get bored.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if I were you, literally, I would be in there like, oh, how do y'all do the sounds? And I'd be learning it, and it's like, this is not my job. Let me focus. That's my problem.
That is exactly it. Okay, Danny, I know it's not boring for you because you're owning things, you're creating, opportunities, right?
Yeah, for sure. It doesn't, and I think that's the coolest thing. Is like for me, I've just always been. I thought about this the other day, and I was like, man, I've never actively worked in the industry. It's always I started in the industry by creating a company, and have just built that actual company. So for me, I'm always coming across challenges, especially being an African American male in an industry that's dominated by individuals who do not look like us. And so from the investment perspective to the partnerships to even the build out of facilities, you know, I'm always in a position to where I'm challenged.
Right.
And that was one of the biggest things for me. It's like, you know, I did my intro where I went from the start and then I just went to the end, right? It's always hard for me to kind of speak of all the journey, you know, because when you're an entrepreneur, like, you have so many things that you experience. But for me, you know, the biggest challenge that I experienced was this. After I was fixing consoles, I then took that data of people giving me their consoles, and I would know, like, you play Street Fighter, you play Call of Duty, and I would actually cross-market that and host tournaments on my campus. So while I would see Greeks hosting parties, I was just like, I am the version of the actual Greek hosting a party, but I was doing gaming tournaments on campus, and individuals would enter in that actual tournament. But after getting so much notoriety on that on campus, I was offered an opportunity in Silicon Valley. And I took the job, right? So I said, I'm going to be in San Francisco for about 3 years, trying to learn how to take my mind where I didn't know that I had the skill set for software development. I knew I needed to create a technological platform to allow tournament organizers to have a better actual experience, but I didn't know software development. So when I got the opportunity to go to San Francisco, I was like, I'm going to leave here knowing how to develop a technical platform from a dynamic perspective. And that's one of the biggest focal points that I did. But when I got there, I was the only I was only African American that was on that team, and all the individuals that were on that team, that, you know, that CEO acquired about $14 million. And at that point, the individuals who were on our team graduated from Harvard, MIT, Carnegie Mellon. So I was just in this company, and I was just like, University of Texas at San Antonio. It wasn't even University of Texas. It was the feeder school, you know, and I'm just like, I felt like inadequate automatically, right? And I always was experiencing challenge because individuals on the team was like, well, how are you here? Like, how did you get here? And especially in Silicon Valley. And I really looked at that as the best opportunity in regards to showcasing that I deserve to be there, depending on, no matter what people will think. And those challenges allowed me to accept the understanding that, you know, this industry is going to be insightful and it's never going to get boring. And it's been that way ever since today. It's always something that's transpiring, which is really, really cool to be able to see.
So you said something interesting. There's not many of us in the industry. So I got some statistics. Yes, I wanted to give you guys some numbers. So American gamers are almost evenly split. Men are at 54% and women are at 46%, according to the ESA, or the Entertainment Software Association. So there are almost as many women playing games as there are men playing games. However, the data shows, are you guys familiar with IGDA, or the International Game Developers Association? All right, so you guys have heard of GDC, our Game Developers Conference? Write these things down. You guys should become a part of these industry events. This is where you can connect, network, learn so much about the various companies. Every year in March in San Francisco, the Game Developers Conference happens. Every gamer around the world is there, everybody. But they have done surveys over the years, and it shows that only 25% of game developers are women, and only 2% of people that are developing in the game industry identify as Black. That's less than most other technology industries. Most other technology industries have computer science majors, we're maybe 5 to 8%, right? So what's going on in the game developers industry, or the gaming industry, is an outlier to what's happening in the rest of, you know, the industries, and we have a lot of work to do. Part of the esports problem is that there aren't a lot of diverse owners or founders, but fortunately, we have one of those that is with us today. And, you know, I think it's just a fantastic thing to have. Like, it couldn't have been an easy road at all.
At all.
Especially being a male, white male-dominated, part of the industry that have so many barriers to entry for people of color. But I think that the positive thing is during the pandemic and when George Floyd happened, there was a lot of money that was infused into the industry, which is how I met Keisha, because Sony actually put out $100 million. I call it throwing it over the fence, though. Okay. There was no accountability that was included. And this is just me talking. I'm not talking for Sony right now. Because I think that, Sony is doing their job to be accountable now. In fact, we used to say we are committed to diversity. Now we're saying we are accountable to diversity. And the difference between the two is being committed just means that you have an ENET or an affinity group, and they talk about cultural awareness and, every Black History Month, some things happen. Accountability means now our president is giving us metrics that we have to meet. We're looking at demographics and understanding how many people are people of color, are women. Different demographics are now being looked at, and now we're being held accountable in order to make sure that we're meeting goals for the organization. That's a big difference. And we're doing things like infusing, we have PlayStation Career Pathways where, like you said, you're targeting younger kids starting early. If we don't start early, we don't compete because white boys and girls are starting very young. So PlayStation Career Pathways is starting at 7th grade, looking at curriculum and building them all the way through apprenticeship programs and internships. So we are actually doing things now. Things are changing. But I want to go into more of the diversity challenges that we're having. And so with regards to diversity, have you experienced any challenges and how have you overcome them?
So for us, we're a Black company. So I'm going to give an answer that's probably a little different. So for us, some of the issues that we have is when we have non-minority individuals in our company. So we've had, if everybody in your company has a similar background, it's easier to understand. Communication is a lot easier. It's just, it's just a lot smoother. But when you bring in someone who's not a minority and they come into your company and all of a sudden they don't have a lot of the privilege that they would have had in a different type of company, it could be frustrating for them. And so that's something that we've dealt with in the past. And it's something that we really learned, okay, we actually do have to be sensitive to other people, right? Like just as somebody would say, well, you hire Black people, this is your DEI initiatives and all those things. Well, it was interesting for us because we were on the other side of it. And so that's one of the things where now when we bring people in, regardless of their background, we try to be more sensitive to them as a person, as an individual, understanding that they might receive information. They may look at things, they may bring in their bias and say, oh, I was intimidated, or, they may bring that into the company. And so it's about really just kind of understanding and being more sensitive to those individual perspectives. And so I would say to anybody who is, kind of getting into esports as well, to, of course you want to surround yourself with people who look like you and provide opportunities for people who look like you, but also make sure that you're not just in your bubble so that you can be able to communicate and work with different people as well.
Yeah, that's a really good perspective, different.
Yeah, because you guys and ladies are at an HBCU right now, and a lot of the times you've chosen that perspective because it feels comfortable. I'm around individuals who look like me. But if we're sitting right now and we're able to say that this industry, when you get in the industry, you're going to be very like a 1%, 2%. So you're going to naturally have to interact with individuals who don't look like you. So putting yourself in those positions to where you're interacting with other individuals only helps you diversify your portfolio. It only helps you understand different perspectives on and different ideologies, different thought processes, and different things. And so when you're leaving the school, understand that, be okay with putting yourselves in different perspectives and different walks of life. Also with the mindset, because the way I look at it is like, if I can develop myself not only to be able to communicate with the individuals that look like me, I can also communicate with individuals in Abu Dhabi. I can communicate with individuals in India. I can communicate with individuals in Africa. And what that means from a bottom line is if I'm looking for my company to be valued at $50 million or $100 million or even $1 billion, I know that in order to be able to do that, I have to be able to communicate with other different individuals from different walks of life. So if I want a global company, I have to be able to take myself outside of just the individuals who look like me. Right? So when you think about that perspective, when you're leaving here, understand that you're learning a language right now with the individuals that look like you, but you also need to understand that you have to be multicultural and have multi-languages, so therefore you can expand your reach and be able to target other individuals, which ultimately drives your actual revenue and drives the actual bottom line of your company.
I 100% agree with that. One of the things that I work diligently with my team, I told you that I have the most diverse team within QA. There's 3 things that I would like you guys to focus on and understand in corporate America. These are the things that if you come in with these skill sets, you're gonna be really well in what Danny was saying. You're gonna do well. The first thing is behavioral skills. If you focus on behavioral skills and you understand, for example, emotional intelligence and how when people, say things that will make you upset, how do you respond to that? How do you emotionally respond to that? For me, naturally, I want to get an attitude. That would have been my natural response. But being in a corporate environment, I have to understand that I have to conduct myself a certain way, have those behavioral skills. And soft skills is the second one. The soft skills is just, communication, collaboration, those type of skills. I guess the third one was emotional intelligence. So just making sure that those 3 things were instrumental. I sat down with my daughter, actually, and we went through that, constantly drilling it into her head, because if you're going to work in corporate America and you're going to sustain and be there, those are the things that, I hate to say this word, but it really is a form of assimilation.
Yeah, and to add on that, there's this term called code switching. And that's where you'll see, if you see somebody if I'm talking like this and then I'm talking to someone who looks differently and I just, hello, and I'm just changing my voice, and you don't have to do that at this point right now. You can just be yourself by interacting with individuals, because one of the things that George Floyd and other press that's come out in regards to African Americans and some of the things that we experience is people are starting to be a little bit more, they're getting more insight and information about what we go through. So you can actually keep your same, your culture is becoming that much more impactful and important and valuable. So you don't have to code switch. I get into meetings and I'm the same person if I'm talking to you or if I'm talking to somebody else. For me, I feel like I'm valuable in itself, and the world is recognizing my true value, and that you have that internally within yourself, so you naturally do not feel like you are incapable or invaluable. But the things that you're experiencing right now, one of the things is your resourcefulness. Cool, right now, we're seeing an actual trend right now in the industry where the people who got the checks where they say, I have an ideal and they got $1 million, $10 million, they didn't really have to work as hard as you when you actually have $1 and you have to be incredibly resourceful with it. Now, when the actual industry changes, the individuals who really had to be brute and really resourceful, now they're actually coming up and beyond because they have true products, they got true services. So your grit, your resilience is gonna be naturally one of the things that keep you at the top of the cream of the crop. So really understand that you're valuable based off of the experiences that you experience on a daily basis with not having a lot of resources. I was happy that I didn't have a lot of resources because it made me think outside the box and how to make things work.
So I have two more questions. I'm going to give one to each of you, okay? So Danny, where do you see the game industry going in the next 5 to 10 years? And whether that's key players, industry trends, or growth in the United States. And then your question, Brittney, is what advice would you give our audience who would like to become successful working in the gaming industry like you?
Quickly for me, because from a time perspective, I recognize that Luka or any of the NBA players, that's just from a reference perspective, had to go and they went to the best middle schools because they were good. Then they got recruited to the best high schools and then the best colleges and then the best professional teams. They got groomed through that whole experience. And esports is working backwards. And so those pro organizations are actually, they're looking for good, talented competitors, but they're also looking for good humans just as much. So from a perspective of our company, we're like, let's go to colleges and help build programs. Let's go to high schools and help build programs because naturally in the next 5 to 10 years, that Jordan or that Luka or that Kobe is gonna come out of these areas. We've literally seen 3 individuals that's come through our program over the last 6 months attribute around about $4 million in competitive winnings. Half of those were the NBA 2K League. So if you know about the NBA 2K League, the last 3 draft picks have all come from our program in the NBA 2K League. Dave Fry, who's Caucasian, out of Waxahachie, has won the NBA 2K League 2 times. He started with us. So in this instance, I'm looking at it as like, how can we actually find the LeBron James of the esports space because that's not existent right now. And ultimately, we know that it's going to come out of our culture because we run it, right? So we're looking at it in the next 5 years. It's like, how do we help take this $350 billion industry from a gaming perspective, but most importantly, from my perspective, that 1% of the esports industry, how do we turn that $3.5 billion into that of $50 billion? And so from our perspective, it's going to be from somebody in these schools, in these cultures, in these communities that's going to do it. And our thing is it's a matter of time before we find that person.
I'm going to say amen to that.
Yes, so I would say anyone looking to be successful in the esports space, first, as I was saying earlier about my journey, is taking advantage of your opportunities. You know, you guys, when you're younger, you have more opportunities than when you get older. You have to fight more as you age and as you grow up. So definitely, you have the world, like literally, like they say, the world is at your fingertips, it's at your feet. So take advantage of your opportunities and be loud about what you want. You know what I'm saying? If you want something new, if you want to try and be a shoutcaster, if you want to be a professional gamer, whatever you want to do, nobody can help you if they don't know. So make sure that people know what you want to do, and then also not waiting on those opportunities, but start doing it. Literally, if you want to be a shoutcaster, there's nothing stopping you from starting to, when you're streaming, right? When you're streaming, make sure that you're actually showing your face if you have the equipment to do so. Find those resources. Put yourself out there if you want to start getting into photography. Well, if you've got nothing else, you most likely have a phone. Use that phone. Learn how to work that phone. Use the editing tools you have. There's Photopea, which is a free editing tool that's very similar to Photoshop, right? So start actually doing it, and as you're doing it, make sure that you're capturing those things in a portfolio, right? People want to see a portfolio when you have your work. Portfolio is essentially a more interactive version of a resume. So yes, you have a resume, which is all words, kind of listing your experience, but your portfolio is going to show me all of your work, whether you have a reel of your gameplay, whether you have a reel of your shoutcasting, hosting experience, or letting me see all the pictures that you've edited. Like, really make it visual, make it real, so that people don't have to guess how good you are at what you want to do or how passionate you are at what you do, but they're able to say, I understand this person through their work, and I know that they would be a good fit for me because I resonate with their work. So really just start doing it, put yourself in it, and then as you are doing those things, as you're in the space of esports, or as you're even in college, you have so much exposure to different experiences. Make sure you're taking advantage advantage of those experiences. When you're running an esports event, there's so many different jobs and opportunities that go along with it. So don't just say, oh, I don't want to do that necessarily, or that's not my job. Get in there, right? Because you may learn something and you may find interest in something that you never even thought that you would like, and that can be your calling. So really make sure you're getting in there, and as you learn all of those roles, that gives you the opportunity to be an expert in something, or even, as it was in my experience, going to a management and an executive role, which kind of allows you to create opportunities for even more people. So that would be what I would say.
So I'm 12, to back up Brittney, I'm 12 years out of college. And if I give you some advice right now, I have never been asked for my diploma in college. I haven't even picked up my diploma, but I'll tell you what I've actually got from college is the networking opportunity. And the relationships I got from my professors, from the individuals that went to college, people even still to this day contact me based off of what I was doing in college. So the networking in college is invaluable from my perspective, but your portfolio is even more critical. Typically, when you're introduced to someone and that person introduced you to another person, they're gonna be able to say, I trust that person that introduced you, now let me see your work. Let me see what you've done. Let me see your events that you've done. Let me see your content that you've created. Let me see your portfolio. Let me see, I don't, as a founder of a company, of essentially a mid-sized company, a little bit out of the startup phase at this point, I really don't so much look at someone's resume before I look at what they've done, whether their social media presence. As a company culture, is very critical. I'm not even going to bring anybody in our company if I deem that they don't fit our culture. So that means I will go to their social media and I'll look at what they post and what they engage with, what are some of the things they're interested in, because our team is tight-knit. It's like a family. And if you bring in a bad apple, it can ruin the whole company. So from this perspective, I'm very conscious on someone's digital footprint before I'm able to look at what they, where they graduated from, right? I'm really focusing on that element. So your digital footprint right now is very critical. If you're toxic online, I guarantee you I can pay a company to find what you posted 10 years ago. And at that point, I don't even have to tell you that I'm not gonna hire you because of that post you made 10 years ago. I'm just not gonna say nothing to you, and you're not gonna get the job, and you're gonna be wondering why you didn't get that job, because I've actually did my due diligence on my end to protect my company, right? So think about that. While you're in school right now, your networking is important, but most importantly, while you're networking, make sure that you're creating that digital portfolio, so therefore when it's time to tell someone what you've done, they can actually see it. They can see it in your followers, they can see it in your content, they can see it in your videos, they can see it in your events. Whatever you choose to do, make sure you're documented, because that's what somebody's gonna say, I wanna take the chance on this person.
So a couple quick things on that. It was not just, and he mentioned that you got to watch your social media, because once you put something out there, it's almost impossible to get back. And so be very careful with what you post, because once you hit send, the world sees it. Secondly, be careful of your credit history. Companies review your credit history a lot of times, especially if you're doing anything that involves some type of money or anything of value that you'll be handling or be responsible for using, whether it's a laptop, a credit card, a company car. So make sure you watch your credit. I tell people, get one credit card and pay it on time, and just pay $3 or $4 over the minimum, because that'll help build your credit. But don't overextend yourself because they check your credit. The other thing too is your driving history. Be careful. These DUIs, driving under the influence of things that you smoke that aren't legal in a lot of areas. Be careful of that too, because if you do something that involves a car or a vehicle, they're gonna check that background and history for you as well. So just make sure you're cognizant of that too. I want to thank Davina, Brittney, and Danny for an amazing panel. We're going to do Q&A right now. So if you have a question, please come up. Don't be shy, and come up to the mic. But real quick, Danny, I want you to tell them again about the $4 million. Tell them about how many NBA 2K players that you've gotten into the league, what the starting salary looks like. For those of you that are 2K players, Madden is about to start a similar league where you'll be able to play professional Madden and get paid a salary and work at one of the NFL teams that will have a Madden team. And I think there's 23
24 now.
24 NBA teams that own 2K professional teams.
Yeah, so it was a funny story really quickly. my vision when I came back to Dallas from Silicon Valley, I literally, and Brittney would know this, I took my loft. I had a 2,000 square foot loft, and essentially like the lab upstairs, I built that in my home at the time. So on the bottom floor, I had 5v5, and then at the top, I took my room and put my bed in the closet, and then I used my room as a spectator area. And I had the podcast area in the second room, you know? And that was my moment where I was like, I'm gonna create the NBA 2K League. And so we would invite individuals that were playing Pro-Am, and we would allow them to come in and compete and do 5v5 competitions, and people were traveling from, you know, Louisiana, Oklahoma, Kansas to come and compete. And then 2 years after that, the NBA announced that they're partnering with the NBA 2K. It Take-Two Interactive to create the NBA 2K League. And a lot of those players that were competing, they were so good because we provided them that platform that they got drafted. So right now we had 8 gamers that have actively got drafted in the NBA 2K League. And as I say, Dave Fry's winning the NBA 2K League championship 2 times. We are seeing these individuals that are changing their lives when it comes down to getting drafted. And they're getting actual salaries right now of upwards of $60,000, 30 to 35,000, upwards of 40 to 50,000 every 6 months. Free housing, free health care, paid Uber trips, and they're competing for prize purses of upwards of 2.5, and they haven't announced this year's, but they're literally looking at around about $3 to $4 million for a 6-month season. So for a lot of these individuals that are 18 years old or 19 or 20, Dave Fry is like 25 now, and he's already retired. He's now the head coach of an esports team. And so at this point right now, these individuals are changing their lives, but what they're doing most importantly is they're actually developing skill sets that are applicable for any industry, meaning they're understanding how to compete in front of a large crowd. They're having to actually put themselves out of there by creating content and streaming. That helps your orating skills, that helps your personality, that helps you impact other individuals. And so those skills are transferable to any industry, the aerodynamics industry, the medical industry. And so think about the skills that you're acquiring right now when you use a keyboard or a controller. As someone said, they want to be a surgeon, right? Surgeons right now have to actually take a controller with a camera and go through someone's heart to see how to be able to actually make that work, right? Or where they need to do their surgery on. It starts from that actual gaming controller, right? You're naturally building skill sets that you may not even know that is actually applicable. If you want to fly drones, right? You're using controller to be able to fly drones. So think about the skill sets that you're developing and how it could be applicable for any industry.
Yes. Good afternoon. How you doing? My question to you would be, can you give me like an estimate of how far off we are, you know, to developing the actual games? Because I'm with playing games, but I know that we're in 2023, and I haven't heard too many of our black, you know, entrepreneurs who've been, you know, in these rooms, in these spaces, soaking up all of that, you know, white fragility and whatnot, dealing with all of that stuff they've been putting y'all through. So at what point are we gonna build our own? Like, do we have any incubators, any accelerators? I know with the rise of AI, you know, it's kind of leveling the playing field. So for the gamers out here that are not being told that you could compete, you could build, you could utilize Unreal Engine, you could do what Fortnite did, like you could really be an owner, you could be sponsored by some of the veterans that are out there who know the ropes. So do we have like workshops, do we have like boot camps to get the youth into, you know, programming languages, Python, how to use ChatGPT to prompt something out? Because I've been seeing them doing it online, and even like Roblox level up to AAA. So do you know anything about that?
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, I'm here in Alabama, so this is kind of, I don't want to answer this where I'm not as in touch, but I'm answering it from a perspective of what we do. Mm-hmm. And our facility in Dallas, what we've done is the last one we did with the Epic Games. So we like December, right? So we reached out to actual Epic Games, and you know, their Epic Games, Fortnite is built on Unreal Engine. And so what we did was we worked with 14 of different independent school districts across Texas. And so we actually went into the superintendents in the actual schools, and we asked the actual superintendents if they can ask their teachers to be able to come part of an actual Unreal Engine actual workshop. And the teachers got credit for coming from a professional development session. So we used our space to invite all of these teachers to be able to learn directly from Epic Games how to leverage Unreal Engine. With the perspective of our industry, from an esports perspective, we wanted those teachers to go back into their classrooms and teach Unreal Engines to the actual students. So therefore, they actually can be able to, students can naturally be focusing on leveraging Fortnite Creator to build the actual worlds with Unreal Engine. So therefore, we can have competitions in our space, not only playing Fortnite, but actually having competitions in our space where we're actually gaining the winner on who built the best Fortnite Creator world, right, which is our way of actually introducing. First, we had to go to the superintendents, to the educators. Right. Educators disseminate the information to the students, and the students can now compete around that of building a Fortnite world in Unreal Engine. And that's the way that we've done it, and that can be something that you can actually mimic that of here. But I just want to make sure that like we were able to do that in our territory because right, we had the resources to be able to do that.
Right. So the same way that the teams could compete in esports, we could have like a school-wide hackathon.
Yes,
with
that's
an incentive, like a reward, so they could really step into it, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly what would have been a great question because that's important.
And we're going to do from a BCGA perspective. I mentioned earlier with Google Play and Scopely. I'm going to do a high school version and our 16 HBC member institution version of a mobile phone game competition where they're going to actually create their own mobile phone games. And we give out scholarships and cash prizes to the best developers of mobile phone games. And then we're going to help them with the Google Play set up and be able to sell and make money off those games after they develop them.
I would love to
so whether you win or not. So we're going to get it out to all of our advisors at our 16 colleges. Yes. We go for a college version, and through our 12 campus summer one of the colleges program, we're also going to go after a high school version of that same thing. Awesome. So great question.
So, hi, my name is Lamont Moorhead. I'm a junior here at Miles College. And it could be a piggyback off of his question as well. I don't know if it'll be able to, but I know there's parents in the room, and I know most of us are kids to parents. And we usually get in trouble as kids playing games, right? And I know that you spoke on, you believe that the LeBron James is going to come from our culture of people. Well, being a son to a single mother that didn't understand that our video games could be the next way for us to be that LeBron James of our era of gaming. So I just want to know, do y'all know of any ways to like inform these single parents and these parents to help them understand that, okay, it's okay to discipline your kid around this area, but if they was educated a little bit more about how impactful their kid could be by playing that video game, I think it'd be a lot helpful to ushering in the LeBron James of the e-gaming.
So,
We were talking about this yesterday.
yeah, we were. So, my daughter, she's grown now, but she basically was a hardcore gamer at the age of 14 years old. Mm-hmm. And I was working at Sony, and I needed a babysitter. Like, they were around the age where they could, like, take care of themselves. But I was like, oh, I shouldn't be leaving them at home. But I got a Dell computer. World of Warcraft was the new great thing that was going. Basically, I put World of Warcraft on that computer, went to work, came back, they were still there. And I felt really bad, and I was like, ooh, if I tell my mother this, she's gonna scold me for doing that. But I saw something that changed my whole landscape. My daughter, in order to be a part of a guild, had to interview. She had to interview with people in that guild that were across the world. And she had to tell them how she was going to be a healer and be able to participate in that guild for that position. When I saw her writing out like what she had to say, and then I was there for the interview, I was like, oh, heck yeah. These are skills that you can apply to interviewing for a job. And she did so well at 14. I was like, holy heck. you have to understand that being in the video game industry, that's critical thinking that you're expressing all the time. Your eye-hand coordination all the time. Like parents, I don't know, you may know how to explain that to them, but I saw for myself that it's an applied skill that you would get in college, not in middle school, right? And I think for us to not allow for you to play games takes you out of the running, you know, and competing in some of these industries, especially in the game industry.
Yeah, and for a simplified perspective, there's an organization by the name of Coalition of Parents in Esports. So if you do cope.gg, it's a platform specifically made by parents who have had competitive gamers that have gone pro, and they've created a community in regards to helping individuals, other parents get information that is very critical in regards to the gaming industry and things that they should miss or things that they should be aware of in regards to being a competitive gamer.
I'm Dr. Robert Agee. I do sports medicine, so I kind of. But interesting enough, I'm also a gamer. So I actually started with PlayStation, the beginning one, up to now I'm on PlayStation 5. And so what I've seen, interesting enough, is kind of our black culture kind of integrated into the gaming. Particularly, I play a lot of 2K and Madden and stuff like that. So I didn't know, and this kind of for PlayStation a little bit, Sony. How are they integrating? Because like the beginning 2K, they didn't have kind of the black swag, I would say, into the games where, when we go to the neighborhood in 2K, you kind of, they're walking around and now they kind of use our dance, our moves, our little bit of our lingo out there. And so my question is that kind of something that your station is integrating in to get, I guess, kind of integrate the culture a little bit, kind of bring in, even like Fortnite, the dance moves that they put on some of the characters is kind of taken from our culture a little bit, and so now they're kind of integrating that into Fortnite. So is there like jobs or opportunities for us to kind of, some of the young kids to kind of bring their flavor, I guess, into the gaming world, not only for creation, like he was saying, like creating the games, but creating them so that the people that are playing it, their culture is in it, And so, is that happening at PlayStation? I guess.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So they do a lot of focus group work. They do their due diligence. They really do. They will go out and do focus groups, and they have a whole team that just focuses on, what are the statistics and demographics of the game. So to give you an example, Miles Morales, Spider-Man Miles Morales, when they were the first alpha that they had for the game didn't cut it because you needed a very specific Puerto Rican, New York kind of feel. So they actually went out to a third party and did their due diligence to make sure that the swagger, all of the dialect, the way they wore their clothes, everything fit. So we have these affinity groups at PlayStation, women at PlayStation, black at PlayStation, Latinx at PlayStation, pride at PlayStation. And Black at PlayStation just got called by one of our new development houses. They're coming out with something and they want to have the black perspective on it. So Black at PlayStation is meeting and actually talking or looking at what they're developing from the very beginning to ensure that it gives the right, black experience.
And one of the best ways to get seen in regards to that of being on those particular communities is content creation. So like everyone has there's so many different, there's around about 200 plus digital careers in the esports space. And you can find whether it's game development, where it's content creation, where it's streaming, producing, there's so many animation, graphic design, and I can go on a list. And one of the things that all of them have in common, if you want to be a professional gamer, one of the things if you look at gamers right now, the best thing they can be is, we call it stick skills. You can be as good as you can on the controller. but it's actually the best content creators are good, but they also are good at content creating. So when you think about this perspective, understand that when you are gaming, start streaming, start creating content, because your content that you want to be able to share in regards to that of getting your culture, your influence in those particular games is going to be by way of the creation of content that you push out there. And when people feel you, those companies are going to see it, and they're going to bring you in to help support their actual organization. So content creation is very critical. You think about people like Mr. Beast that gets, offer $1 billion for their organization, for their channel. Think about the value of content creation. You can do that no matter what industry that you're looking to be able to get in.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Let's give them a hand, everybody.